It's good to see you. It is past 9 o'clock, so we're going to get started. And we do have a quorum because we have, is Gloria on the phone? Good morning, Senator. How are you?
Good morning.
And good morning, Denise. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Thank you.
Wonderful. And we have Brian here today, and we have Michael here for the Secretary of Planning, and we have Clarence here for Secretary Churchill. So Bob and I are ourselves.
Thank you.
So anyway, I'm calling the meeting to order now. And are there any revisions to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. If it's all right with the members, I'd like to take off item number 6, Baltimore City HVAC project status. It was only a few weeks ago that we last met, so there's really nothing new to report. We wanted to leave it on the agenda so you know that we're always going to come every month to bring you
That's
up to
smart.
date, but
Thank you.
nothing today.
Okay, perfect. All right, and we do not have anyone for public comment today. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. And do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? All right, we have a motion from Mr. Gibbons. Do we have a second?
Second.
Clarence, second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Passes unanimously. And good morning, Dick. Good to have you here today.
Good morning.
We have a-
Apologize for being late.
That's all right. We have a full complement, and we're happy to see you. All right, so the consent agenda has been approved unanimously, and we'll move now to Section 2 in your book, which is, I think Arabia is going to come up and lead us through this section. Good morning, Arabia. It's nice to see you. We have 2 sections in here, one Prince George's County, the fiscal 18 CIP projects, and then St. Mary's County. So I'll let you begin.
Yes, the motion in front of you today is to approve the decision of funding approval for the
Check your mic,
six.
Arabia. Just tap it. Thank you.
Okay, the motion in front of you today is to approve the rescission of funding approval for the 6 projects listed below totaling $2.3 million for Prince George's County Public Schools and to transfer of the FY 2018 CIP allocation of $2.3 million to the statewide contingency account reserved for Prince George's County Schools. The LEA plans to reevaluate the project scope and resubmit the top 3 projects in a future CIP. The remaining 3 projects were completed by using other funding sources. If there are no questions.
Are there questions for this? All right, Arabia, would you read the motion?
Okay. To approve the rescission of funding approval for the 6 projects listed below totaling $2.3 million for Prince George's County Public Schools, and to approve the transfer of the FY 2018 CIP allocation of $2.3 million to the statewide contingency account reserved for Prince George's County Public Schools.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, Mr. Gibbons?
Second.
All right, and Senator Lala seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, for St. Mary's County, the request is to approve the rescission of planning approval for the FY 2017 Capital Improvement Program, New Century County Elementary School Project in St. Mary's County. The request is due to a decline in enrollments. The LEA will consider school capacity needs should the enrollments in the school begin to materialize.
All right. Any questions for Arabia on that? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Again, by Mr. Gibbons.
Second.
Second by the Senator. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Arabia. Thank you. All right, now we're going to move on to Section 3, which is the facility status changes update. And Michael is going to give
Okay.
us a presentation on that section. Thank you,
Surely.
Michael.
Okay, thank you and good morning. We do have a couple of property items for your review today. The first one is a property transfer in Calvert County of the Hunting Creek Annex. This was an older school that was built and has been not used as a educational facility for some time. They're now seeking to transfer to the county government. There is a little background that you can review there that actually I add a little detail to it in case you were interested in knowing about the history of the building itself.
Well, it's had multiple uses. It seems like it's served the school system well over the years.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they are anxious to transfer it.
Right. Would you read the motion, please?
Sure. The motion is to approve the transfer of the 3.274 acre site known as the Hunting Creek Annex at 4105 Old Town Road in Huntingtown, Maryland, by the Calvert County Board of Education to the Calvert County Board of Commissioners. The Calvert County government shall obtain approval of the Interagency Commission before transferring any right, title, or interest to any portion of the property.
All right, do we have approval of the motion?
So moved.
All right, again, Mr. Gibbons motioned. We have a second?
Second.
Second, by Dick.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries again unanimously. All right, go ahead for the next
Okay.
one.
So the second item here is site acquisition for Montgomery County Public Schools of the McDonald Knowles Elementary School property. This was a former school building which was constructed in 1953. It actually has served for non-educational purposes since the early 70s, but the county schools now would like to reacquire it for an early childhood learning center.
All right, any questions for Michael on that property? All right, if not, do we have a motion or
I
to
can
approve?
read the motion.
Oh, I guess you should read the motion.
I should read the
yes.
motion.
Thank you.
Okay. The motion is to approve the acquisition by the Montgomery County Board of Education of the former McDonald Knowles Elementary School property at 10611 Ten Brook Drive in Silver Spring, Maryland, from the Montgomery County government for use as an early childhood learning center, adhering to the actions identified in the State Clearinghouse Review State Identifier MD 2018-1016-0844.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So
So moved.
All right, that would be.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries again unanimously. All right, the next one.
So then we also included in the packet some informational items from Baltimore City in terms of the status changes of a number of the schools. This happens this time of year as they reevaluate their portfolio.
Any specifics that you want to mention about this, Michael?
We did get another packet of changes that we'll be bringing to the IAC next month. These are part of the closures and transfers that they're doing as they reevaluate programs within buildings. We may, in fact, bring a couple of these closures back once they transfer the schools' properties.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for bringing us that information, and we'll look forward to the additional updates next month. All right, now we're going to move on to Section 4, which is the approval to waive the fiscal year 2013 Energy Efficiency Initiative procedures. And that's Kim, so welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Good morning. This item is about the Energy Efficiency Initiative procedures for the FY13 funding. What we're asking the IAC to do is to approve the waiver of those procedures for the $3.4 million that's in the statewide contingency account and allow us to allocate those funds to capital improvement projects in the CIP. Back in FY13, when this procedure was developed, it was specifically for projects that would improve energy efficiency, and it's our intention to keep with that intent by allocating it to those types of projects. But there was a fairly elaborative application process, and it was done in collaboration with MEA and with contractors, and all of those people have gone away, but we'd like to get the 3.4 million reallocated to current projects. I can let you know that of that 25 million, we did expend 86% for 214 projects. So it did improve lighting, some HVAC around the state. So,
Okay. Questions on that?
Do we have authority to waive that?
So the IAC develops the procedures. So basically, what we're saying is those procedures are no longer applicable to the remaining funds or the remaining projects. But we will, so we're going to use the current administrative procedures for the capital improvement program to allocate those funds. And I guess Elliot can speak to if we have that authority.
Yeah, we took a look at, at that exact question, and also the authority to allocate these funds in fiscal year 2020 that were allocated in legislation in fiscal year 13. These were bond funds, and Kim was going to check with the Treasurer's Office on that. I guess you can explain that. But these were procedures that were developed by the IAC and I guess approved by the Board of Public Works back then, but now that you are in the shoes of the Board of Public Works, you have the authority to revise those procedures guidelines. It was not in regulation, but the authority for the funding was in statute. And this is left over after projects were completed. My understanding is that projects that were under budget and money that was reverted back.
Yes, that's correct.
That's a good question, though. Thank you for asking that. Make sure that we're on the, we're reducing the bureaucracy, but we have to make sure we're able to do that. So, any other questions about that change? All right, would you read the motion, Kim?
Yes. Approval to waive the requirements set forth in the Administrative Procedures Guide for the FY 2013 Energy Efficiency Initiative for projects in the FY 20 or in subsequent capital improvement programs to be funded.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, by Dick. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, by Michael. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. Kim, I think you're back up here.
Baltimore City.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to skip you, Jamie.
I can just stay. Yeah, you're right. Efficient to just stay
Yes,
here.
we'll be efficient today. Hi, Jamie. Sorry, I saw we crossed something out, and I thought it was you.
I don't feel
Then
bad about it.
I realized that you have another item, too. So if you'll please bring us up to date on Section 5, Baltimore City Public Schools Amendment to the CIP.
Great. Good morning, everybody. First, little background information. In May 2017, Baltimore City Public Schools requested that 13 projects be canceled and that the allocations associated with those projects be transferred to contingency. Of those 13 projects, 2 of them were at the historic Samuel Coleridge Taylor Elementary School. That's number 122. Those projects were for HVAC replacement and for a fire safety improvement. On May 31st, 2018, the IAC passed the CIP, which included funding for the historic Samuel Coleridge Taylor HVAC replacement job. We were able to do that with a little bit of extra money that we allocated to imminent threat projects, but we were not able to fund their fire safety project in that same CIP. When they had canceled those projects, because the HVAC project had come in overbid, they had planned to coordinate the project with the fire safety project, so they canceled them both and promised that they would submit them again together, and which they did. So at this time, they have moved forward with the HVAC project, and they continued to work on the fire safety project, and they would like to amend the 2019 CIP to fund that project. The current request for $419,000 is less than the original allocation, but that would not constitute partial funding, which we have agreed to not do. The For 48% of the original allocation, Baltimore City will be able to deliver this project because they have bundled these projects, and for example, they can save money because they will be pulling the ceiling out to take care of the HVAC. So if 48% of the allocation, this will get the work done. This is cost effective. This would not be possible without this kind of coordination. And for an example, Annapolis Middle School was approved for a multi-systemic renovation in the 2019 CIP that came in comparably on dollars per square foot. And so this is in line with good practices. For that reason, staff recommends this approval.
All right, would you read the motion, please?
Sure. The motion is to approve a request from Baltimore City Public Schools to first amend the FY 2019 Capital Improvement Program to approve funding in the amount of $419,000 for the fire safety project at 122, the historic Samuel Coleridge Taylor Elementary School, and two, transfer $419,000 from the statewide contingency account reserved for Baltimore City Public Schools to fund the fire safety project at 122, the historic Samuel Coleridge Taylor Elementary School.
Are there questions for Jamie? All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by
Second.
Mr. Gibbons and seconded by Dick. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Jamie.
Thanks so much. Now back to the Kim Show.
Now back to Kim. And we have
Thank you,
the
Jamie.
wonderful report for the audit, so
Yes, I'm going to have David Freeze, we're happy to have him on board. He is our program manager
Right,
for
thank
the
you.
maintenance. This item is informational. We did have a good audit. There's just the one item, and that was in relation to the public school maintenance inspections. So David can just report to you what we've changed so that the next time this won't be an item. A finding for us, yes.
So during the 2019 audit, it was noted that the IAC did not always obtain required corrective action plans from the LEAs. In response, we updated our procedures to implement a tracking sheet that is filled out now with when the audit is sent to the LEA, the 30-day follow-up date, and then
David, you mean LEA, the local school system?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. We call it the LEA. Just, I didn't want people not understanding.
Okay, yeah, the
what you were
LEA.
saying,
What
not
it-
to put you on
and,
the spot there.
So we updated the tracking sheet to track the audit start date and the 30-day response. If it's not done in 30 days, we note that in that tracking sheet, and then we also send up a follow-up email to them.
All right, any questions from anybody on that? Yeah, we don't want repeat findings, so it's important that we have corrections in place that will enable us to have a good way to track when the repairs are done. So thank you for coming up with that solution. So again, this was just informational, unless there's other questions. Thank you very much.
The next item is change orders, and this is also information item. It's a additional change orders that the locals were surveyed, if they wanted, they still had the option to have them either reviewed by DGS because they were from prior capital programs. And these are the ones that they indicated they just would take care of locally funded. It's basically to clear our books.
Madam Chair, just for
Yeah.
information, 1780B, House Bill 1783 said that we could no longer hold that 2.5% as contingency out of the projects. So this is part of the cleanup. There's a lot of work. Carrie's been very involved in this, lots of calls, lots of paperwork.
Yes.
And we reported some of this out last week. And I also want to mention that in the EdSpec work group meetings, they have suggested that potentially the IAC would want to hold 2.5% out of the entire CIP, not out of projects, to hold that aside to be able to help with a change order in a local education agency if needed. so that a project doesn't become held up and unable to move forward. So it's just information. It would be your decision. And if we continue this work group continues to believe that that's a good recommendation, we will probably bring it to you.
Okay, sounds good. Are there any, Kim, any anomalies here at all in any of these change orders after you reviewed them?
No, there's not any.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Dick?
Is there a threshold beyond which you must seek approval from the IAC or for a change order, or some amount of change orders, or percentage of contract, or?
Previously, the IAC staff at Department of General Services made those decisions for every change order for the capital improvement program. There wasn't just an amount that review happened. With the Aging Schools program, it was $25,000 if there was a change order over $25,000. But for the capital program, it was every change order. And it didn't always result in any additional funding for the project. I think we may have had, millions of dollars of change orders, and 1% may have gotten funded of the capital program.
How is the funding authorized?
So, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
if I could, this is why this came through HB 1783. The complaint from the local education agencies was that we never paid for change orders. There were a few exceptions, but for the most part, we fund X dollars based upon the square footage that we approve and the square foot price that we approve every year. It's a calculation. It usually is not enough to do a project. So by the time they get to change orders, we don't have anything left. It's above the allocation. So it's local dollars, their decision was the discussion in the Knott Commission. If we were to do a 2.5%, where the LEA comes to us looking for money for help with a change order, then yes, absolutely, every one of them would come to the discretion of the IAC before additional state dollars went towards that.
So this is local money?
This is local money.
Right, they'll be responsible for all of these change orders now. The state won't participate.
Any other questions?
Just one, and I don't mean to.
No, it's fine.
Is there any information about the average percentage of money, percentage of contract amount that is required for change orders?
We don't track it to that detail level in our current financial system to be able to give you that information. Yeah, we don't have that information.
Do the LEAs have it?
I don't know, I guess we could see if they have that. Well, of course, they.
Yeah, they have to have it. They have
Yeah,
to
they
track
have
it.
to have it.
We don't have it
Right.
because we're not paying for it.
Exactly, they have to track it, and their county governments are going to want those reports, so.
Yeah, our accounting system
I
has
guess
always
because we're
tracked
not
our own
paying for it.
appropriation.
Right.
Best practices is for a new project below 2%. Anything above that, there's either been a flaw in the owner's communication for the design, and something has to happen to fix that, or there's an error in emissions that there is insurance carried if the owner chooses to apply to help to fund those differences. But it is something that might be interesting to know, but we would have to do a survey of all the LEAs.
Well, we're not paying for it, so.
That's right.
But getting back to what we're working on, the Ed Specs group, the contingency component, I assume that the LEAs have a contingency in their approvals, and we're just funding up to our, whatever we're
Correct.
funding to.
That's correct. They are required by HB 1783 to put a contingency in their projects.
Should cover these things.
Right,
Yes.
it should. All right, thank you, Kim, appreciate it. And now we have Fred. Fred Mason will come up and talk to us about the relocatable report of our learning cottages, as some people call them. And that's in section 9 of your book.
Yes, on page 90, it begins, and
Yes, yeah, there are many names for these. Go ahead, Fred.
this item is informational, doesn't require any IAC action. Relocatable classrooms can be a useful tool for managing capacity issues and program changes on a temporary basis. once the structures themselves pass about 15 years, they begin to require more maintenance, more frequent maintenance to diminish inequality. So that's a trigger that something should be done. Also, once they remain in the same location for an extended period of time, that's a signal that the LEA should look at a more permanent capacity solution either at that school or in the area. The number of relocatables in use for instruction did decline over the past year, primarily as new schools were put into service in Baltimore City, and the relocatables that had been associated with those projects went away. So that accounted for much of the decrease in relocatables. The highest numbers of relocatables are in use in our two largest systems, Montgomery and Prince George's. As a percentage of students housed in relocatables, Charles County remains the leader.
Can I explain why that is, since I happen to have been in their really amazingly beautiful relocatable school, which is a transitional school. Charles County enrollment is growing greatly, and so they're building a number of new elementary schools. And I just visited the transitional school, which is it's a large modular design with a very nice built-on gym and cafeteria. There was a fire there years ago, and they redid the whole thing. But literally, when you walk into that building, and you totally forget about the outside because it looks absolutely like a beautiful elementary school inside. They have done a great job in making that happen. And this school that was there has been there for 2 years. They're exiting this June, and the next school that's going to be built is coming in, and they will transform that building into their school. So I actually think it's a very smart solution for a county that has a fast-growing population, because they don't have to, everybody can stay together, and the parents are thrilled when they do the walkthrough and see how nice it is inside, and they have all the same programs that they have in the regular school. And I was just extremely impressed with it. I'm so glad that I got to see it, because I know that we talk about the issue of so many children being in these learning cottages or portable classrooms, but sometimes it's to get into a new school. And so that's been really a really great way to do it. And so the reason Charles County comes up with that kind of percentage is they have a whole school that's been relocated into that. So that's why you see the larger percentage. I just wanted to explain that.
Yes,
That was very
thank you
helpful.
very much, very helpful. And one last highlight is the state-owned relocatable inventory is composed just about entirely of structures that are over 30 years old, and as those come out of service, the usual response of the LEA is to request demolition. Value has been extracted and exhausted, so we'll continue over time to see the state-owned inventory decrease.
Great. Any questions for Fred? Appreciate that report. It's always interesting. Okay, now we're going to go to having Joan come up and update us on the fiscal year 19 School Safety Grant Program applications. And I think
I'm moving over there.
I think it's on.
Oh, it's on. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see, oh, yeah, okay. I didn't
It's
see
very hard to see the little light.
that. Yes.
Right.
Well, good morning. This, again, is an informational item. It's what I bring to you at every meeting. This is not the final in terms of funding, but it's the final in terms of request report of the Round 1, Phase 1 of the FY 2019 funding. April 1 was the deadline for submission. All applications are in. As you-
Yes, that's great news, because we were a little concerned, if you remember, last month. So,
Yes.
good news.
As you can see from the chart and the backup, very close to all the funds have been assigned. Security vestibules, doors and door hardware, and surveillance and security technology were the categories receiving the most funding. This aligns with the survey that we, if you recall, we did last September, August, September. So one other thing, the one item at the bottom, security window covering to create areas of visual refuge, that has the most projects, but they're very small. It's just Baltimore County, and in fact, it's a good solution to creating areas of visual refuge in their classroom, something that we really thought was a good way to use this funding. So on the next pages are the summary of the IAC projects and the comparison sheet put together by Zachary Hands, showing a comparison of the project approvals between this program and the Safe Schools Fund grant.
A little closer to your mic.
Closer?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I
thank
would
you.
just point it down towards you.
Okay.
Thank you.
There you go.
I'm finished, though.
Oh,
That's all right.
If you have any
Right, you might have-
questions,
we
I
might
would be
have
happy to respond. We have started the second round, as you know. I brought the procedures
Yes.
to you last time, and this closed on April 1, and that began on April 1.
Wow, there's a lot to do, but, it's been very well received. And I think having us go to the superintendent's meeting last month really made a difference, because everybody got right on it, and we got everything in, and we're seeing the same thing on the school safety side. We have our monthly meeting coming up Monday, so I'm really pleased that we've been able to get out. It's like $20 million of security across the state. And I was just at the Chief State School Officers meeting in Washington DC this past week, and one of the large topics was school safety. And I just found everything that we were doing was just so far ahead of most states. And I got to do a short video. Zach had put together some talking points for me, so I'll be glad to share that with
Oh, I'd
you
love to see
on
that.
school safety, because we just talked about all the improvements we've made here because of the Safe to Learn Act. And we've really helped to ensure the safety of our kids. And certainly, the locals are doing a great job in following up with everything, but at least we were able to provide that funding, and we thank the governor for that appropriation.
Madam Chair, would that be worth putting up on our website?
I think absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joan.
Thank
We'll
you.
look forward to, tell us the deadlines for the new money, again, just to remind us.
The new funding, the last day to submit applications is September 30th of this year. It's a bit of a shortened schedule, and all the funds need to be substantially expended by November of 2020.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for Joan on the grants? Okay, thank you, Joan. Appreciate you keeping an eye on that for us. And now we'll have our legislative update. Cassandra?
Madam Chair, members, you'll notice that this list is significantly shorter than at your last meeting when we were tracking around 30 bills. This list only shows those bills that passed both chambers in the General Assembly. For the most part, these haven't been signed by the governor, so they're not a done deal yet, but they're close. I'm just going to quickly highlight some key points. House Bill 100 is the operating budget bill. It did include the potential for some additional PAYGO funding that could go toward the CIP. However, that funding is what we call fenced. That simply means that the governor has to process a budget transfer in order for it to become available. So unless that occurs between now and the next meeting, it's likely that we would hold off recommendations in the CIP until that does occur. It also includes $30 million for the Healthy School Facilities Fund. That legislation passed last year and allows the IAC to fund projects for things such as air conditioning, heating, air quality, even plumbing. We're working on draft procedures that we're going to bring to you in the next few meetings. It also includes $10 million for the School Safety Grant Program. That will be our first round for FY20, and $3.5 million for non-public school safety improvements. House Bill 101 is the capital budget bill. Sadly, the revolving loan fund went unfunded again this year. That funding was removed. The biggest change in the capital budget bill is a reduction of CIP funding equaling $28.2 million. That funding was essentially moved to the Enrollment Growth and Relocatables Classroom Funding, EGRC, which was increased by $28.2 million. When we send the CIP recommendations to you before the May meeting, you're going to see some shuffling of funds because of that change. Arabia is working on a couple of different scenarios for you right now. Aging Schools was funded at its normal level, $6.1 million, and the non-public Aging Schools program got a slight bump. It's typically $3.5 million. It went up to $4 million. House Bill 1192 requires that assistive listening systems be installed in any state-funded assembly area. From what we can tell, most of that was already covered by ADA. It's probably not going to be a huge difference in what was done before. House Bill 1253 modified the Healthy School Facilities Fund to allow for the funding to be used to correct elevated levels of lead in drinking water in schools. Senate Bill 318 simply modified the membership of the School Safety Subcabinet to include a representative of a non-public special education school that is appointed by the governor. Senate Bill 653 allows Carroll County and Howard County to enter into an MOU to create an innovative regional school. As it pertains to this body, the bill requires that the IAC study and develop a state cost share formula for county boards of education that choose to collaborate and operate a regional school and to report its findings to the governor and the General Assembly before January. Senate Bill 1011 is the most significant piece of legislation relating to the IAC that passed. It creates a public-private partnership fund for Prince George's County that is administered by the IAC. Projects that use alternative financing in Prince George's won't be subject to the state cost share, the maximum state construction allocation, or approval of funding by the IAC. However, the legislation does require that the school board, the county, and the IAC enter into an MOU to govern how that works. So even the authority that lies under the traditional CIP process isn't there, will establish those rules in the MOU. The MOU further requires that any appropriation in the fund supplement, not supplant, Prince George's CIP funding. And it does state in an uncodified section of law, Section 2, at the end, that it is the intent of the General Assembly that the governor provide funding for the IAC to have expert staff, consultants, and legal services to help school systems negotiate and execute public-private partnership contracts for construction. This is really critical. These are really sophisticated agreements that far outlive the people who make them.
Right.
So this is an important point. And with that, I covered a whole lot, but I will stand for questions.
Questions for Cassandra on the legislation that was passed? There are some heavy lifts there, I must say.
I do have a
Go
question.
ahead, Dick.
Are there specific projects in Prince George's County that are contemplated for the P3 process?
There are a number of projects that they're contemplating. I think it's around 10, and Director Gorel can speak to that better than I can.
No, that's it, and they're still shuffling their list. They want to move everything forward as public-private partnership. And as Cassandra has said, sometimes these look very good in the front, and it's the long game that is difficult to manage, because the performance is that you reach the end of a 30-year agreement. Typically, you want to have the value that you expect at the end. Same as you lease a car, you bring it back dinged up, you're going to have to pay for it. These agreements need to represent the same. So putting them in place so that they work, I think it's exciting. It's an option. The way this legislation has been drafted, it's going to be interesting as it's being developed. The Prince George's is putting on an informational seminar to all of the vendors. I don't have that date in front of me, but let me get it and I'll send it out to all of the members. But it's coming up within the next couple of weeks.
Can we get a synopsis of that bill so we can,
Yes.
and that applies to our Ed Specs work group, certainly that's,
We absolutely will.
imagine where that came from.
Yes.
Yep. Any other suggestions or questions? Thank you, Cassandra. And now, Director Gurl is going to talk to us about the Caroline County Greensboro Elementary potential variance.
Yes, and if I could, please, Milton from Caroline County and their architect, Peter, are here.
Welcome. Good to see you, Mr. Nagel.
We've, this is a very important project. The school district has not built a new elementary, Milton, is that correct, in 35 years?
We haven't built a new school in over 40 years.
35 years, okay.
Period.
So, and they're right in the middle of, jumping in the middle of total cost of ownership discussions. You know, how can we possibly make things work differently? We have a set of guidelines that were established years ago that didn't possibly consider English as second language learners, which this school has a quarter, 200 of the 800 students. And it's the highest percentage of all of their schools with second language learners. How is education delivered? We don't want to build a school that doesn't support the educational program. So this became a poster child in a number of ways for us to be able to test some of the discussions in the EdSpec work group and some of the things that we would like to accomplish. And one is what the state funding sufficient? We hear that the state's not fully funding the needs. That was a big discussion in the Knott Commission. So we wanted to understand, and we invited the district, Caroline County, that if they could prove to us, it was a challenge, so that we could bring it to you. We are allowed within Comar, because this is a Maryland 1 county. In the EdSpec committee, we talked about maybe revising that so that any county could have this same option. To bring the challenge with definitive information why that size needs to increase. And it was a heavy lift. It went to the county, said, yes, we would like to do that. A lot of the work went on the architect. I will want to say publicly that as we are trying to build schools more efficiently, that this skill set that we depend on designers to provide to us is just about the most important piece. The second most important piece is the furniture within those facilities so that we can multi-use spaces and deliver modern education. So all of these things were in play in the discussion. What you have before us is a slight increase over the current standards, and we fully support this. And I want to say also that it is a little less than the standard that we intend to bring to you to recommend for the entire state, because we would like the new standard to cover most of the cases so that you have fewer variances that come to you. But that's another discussion. I don't want to get ahead of myself. And I certainly would like to, I would like the county and the architect to tell us how it went. They did utilization charts that talk about each room, who's the teacher the room is, how often is it used. This school is approaching 100% as a school, which is darn good in the use of their space. And that's how I'm just real proud of the way that you've done this. And I would like to offer Fred or Milton or Peter to please tell us what you think, and was this too difficult?
Well, I'm going to graciously defer to Peter, because as the architect, he really took it on the chin and willingly took it on the chin to take the tool that you provided and work primarily with our principal and with our supervisor, VL. I just kind of dip my toe in every once in a while to make sure we were still moving in the right direction. But as far as the labor of love that Peter exerted, I'm going to let him speak to that specifically. It's on.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Thank you, Milton. I was joking with Bob before the meeting. It's kind of fun to be on the pointy end of the spears now and then, not all the time.
Yeah.
So this is a great learning experience for us. Certainly, I think this is going to be the norm moving forward in terms of how to really make sure we're getting the square footage right. So I would say the process was, we're on a very steep part of the learning curve. But having looked back on it, at the time, we were pulling our hair out because we're halfway through our construction document phase. So the timing isn't ideal, but the process, I think, works. Certainly if it happens earlier in the project, it would be a lot less troublesome than it was for us, simply because of the timing, not the process itself, but where it happened in our trajectory of trying to get ready for bid in a few months. So we're going to adjust to that. So I would say that aside, I feel like it was a fair process, really put us to task to prove to ourselves that we were designing the most efficient, functional school we could, and that's always a great challenge, especially as resources tighten. So I found it to be difficult, but worthwhile.
I would also say, as a small LEA, we don't have the in-house staff to really provide the expertise to know what we should be, tweaking and not. And we couldn't have done it without Fred and Jillian up here at the state level, having their in-house expertise to be more, our partner. Not that Peter's not a partner as well, but it takes a team, and we don't have those resources, so they're invaluable to smaller systems like us.
Second that, for sure.
Very good.
Well, again, I had an opportunity to visit Greensboro, and they use every nook and cranny of the existing building, and it is very crowded, but very delightful school and very well maintained. All of Caroline County schools are very well maintained. So I was delighted that we could work this out, and it's also something that I'm in support of. So I think we're ready to move to the motion. So Fred, would you read the motion? Or I guess.
Madam Chair, if I could, just one more thing. This is a learning experience all the way around. Got to meet with the superintendent, the architect, and Milton, Peter, and we wanted to just kind of roll through everything, kick the corners. Some of the spaces, like gym space and that,
Right.
are large for an elementary school, but very important to that community. And a school needs to be what that community needs. And then it has to balance against what the state can afford and all of us can afford. So this school has very small classrooms, about 20 students, but it needed pull-out spaces for, as I said earlier, about a quarter of those students to be able to provide individual attention, both outside of the classroom and within the classroom. But there was a secondary advantage as they began to explain this, because not all children learn the same, and it's not just second language learners that sometimes need to have additional help and support. And so this design, in the way that they have completed it, reduce that total footprint from what the school would have been. The existing school was the original plan, and put an addition on, throwing away the old school, reducing it down to this reasonable footprint, and it's going to be a lot less expensive to operate over the next 30 years and to own than it would have been otherwise.
Right.
With a cheaper first solution, the more expensive solution actually is less expensive.
In the long term.
In the
And
long
that's what
term.
we have to start looking at, is the long term.
So thank you guys again.
Madam Chair, so for clarity, the increase of cost is purely the square footage. We're paying the same amount per square foot.
That's correct.
Milton, you wanted to say something?
Just that I echo Bob's comments about total cost of ownership. I mean, certainly that's important. It's not just your initial cost, but total cost of ownership. And the state has certainly supported that with energy efficiency programs in the past, and supported it through energy infrastructure upgrade programs that we've all done. And we pointed out, and as you pointed out, Dr. Salmon, we do take care of our buildings. We have an excellent track record of as it relates to the state's inspection of our facilities. This is new territory for us. We haven't built a school, from the local capacity, it is a huge lift.
Absolutely.
From our county commissioners' debt capacity, and as Bob articulated in the attachment, the states met that match. They went out on the ledge 2 weeks before the election and raised the piggyback tax to the maximum level in order to secure enough operating money to pay back the debt associated with this project and future projects, because on the heels of this project is another new school, a new tech center.
That's
and Bob's been there. I know Dr. Salmon's been to
I actually taught there.
You don't have to, you don't have to.
That's okay.
I didn't know you
And
taught
when-
it in that building. I knew you taught at Colonel and at Denton Elementary. I didn't know you were at the
Yeah,
tech center as well.
I was there 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so,
I learned something this morning. Thank you.
that's
for
right. That was back when you were in high school, Milton. So.
We're not going there, Dr. Sam.
I have to admit, I was there when came into Caroline County, or left Caroline County in March of 1987 to go to Talbot County as Director of Special Education. And I remember going to visit Talbot County schools and was absolutely amazed by the difference in the schools, because Mr. Hoopengardner, the superintendent, had utilized all of the state money anytime it was available and built all the schools back in the 70s. Whereas the superintendent in Talbot County, and I can, talk about him now, he's passed a long time ago, but he didn't want to take any state money. And so when I got there, not that I was in the capacity of doing anything about the facilities, but literally some of them were falling down and had not been well maintained. And for me, it was just such a stark difference coming from a county that cared so much about their buildings and did take the state money and built them, and kids had great environments to learn in. So anyway, we caught up finally, but it took about 10 more years for us to get our buildings back to where they should be. So he did a great job in building that for Caroline in those days. So way back before the computers and all the other things we had there.
Yeah, and before you had even CPAs on staff
Exactly,
to manage
that's
the
true.
money.
That's true.
I'm sure it was true, but they said that Dr. Hoopengardner, as the superintendent, kept all the
Yeah, he
school
kept all the
school
books.
facility books in his left-hand file
That is
drawer of his
correct.
desk
And-
for all
and,
the projects.
Just as a nice story, I will tell you that every person that worked in the central office, which wasn't very big, in the old court, what was that?
Masonic Lodge across from the
Masonic Lodge,
courthouse.
with
Yeah.
the only elevator in Caroline
The
County.
only elevator in Caroline County,
Oh,
yes.
it was
Up
really
until
fun.
about 10 years ago,
I
still
know.
true.
Yeah,
Okay.
people like to just come and get on it and go up and down. But anyway, whenever we were ready to start the new year and the administrative handbooks had to be put together, we all had to go, and he led the line, and we went around this huge table, and we would pick up this page and put it on the next page and go ahead, and that's how there was long before the collating copiers, and we had to collate all the administrative handbooks for the school, and so I remember that very fondly. So anyway, a little bit of history there.
What do we do with all that time now?
I don't know. And now
Respond to emails is what we do.
we talk about emails, or we talk through emails. So, but anyway, so do I have a motion to approve this variance?
May I have a question?
Certainly.
What is the timing for the start of the project and the length of construction?
We hope to go, we pushed it back a little bit, go out to bid in the fall, or late summer, start construction in early fall. It's a 18-month time frame. Still to be completed by the start of, to be able to move the children in there for the start of the 21-22 school year.
Do you have a person within the LEA or a contractor that you use to administer, to oversee the construction process?
Yes, sir. We've, last few projects, and this project included, utilized the construction management at risk approach, CMR, and we've already gone through the RFP process and selected Whiting and Turner as the CMR for this project.
There's also in-house staff.
Yes, we do have an in-house staff person, Mr. Chuck Petrick, who Dr. Sammons knows, who's comes from a construction background, who is our in-house supervisor of school construction facilities.
Thank you.
Okay. So, do we have a motion to approve this variance?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, and we'll look forward
very
to
much.
seeing the new school come to fruition.
Thank you all.
Make sure you're all invited.
Please do, please do. All right, thank you very much. So that concludes our agenda for the public meeting today, and we are going to go into a closed executive session meeting in order to discuss a legal issue with counsel. And so if I could have a motion to close, and then a motion, a second to that motion.
Motion to close.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, and we will adjourn to the caucus room. Thank you all very much.